feeling the void of World War I's cataclysmic events. Having everything not making you happy and living in the moment being completely unhealthy. Drinking to fill a void isn't really real. And stars burn out because being happy is okay. FScott Fitzgerald is reminiscent of Wes Anderson because he influences culture and never lets get anyone else's creative process get in the way of his own.
The Fitzgeralds were the obsession of 1920s New York. With their lavish living, their insane parties, and their extravagant vacations, Zelda and Scott were icons,
gracing the covers of magazines to the silver screen of the 1920s. Scott and Zelda had it all, and everyone wanted to be them, be with them. Though Scott died young, he lived in the moment, and let every single second of that moment be about him and his novels. He and Zelda lived wonderfully in huge houses from coast to coast, never bought, always rented. Permanence was not an aspect of Zelda and Scott's life. In the 20s, hotels were popping up everywhere, and New York City was expanding at a rapid rate. For the rich, it was better because they could stay in these establishments and not just build them. Scott and Zelda were frequent customers at these hotels, and not only the hotels, but the speakeasies too. Places like the Cotton Club served alcohol even after the 18th Amendment ratification to the Constitution, outlawing drinking. Scott drank all the time. So did Zelda. She was the first American flapper, you know. They were everything that the speakeasies wanted and were stood for. But binge drinking couldn't hide the scars of World War I's destruction and Scott's own demons. The two partied and partied, but never forgot, even though they wanted to. Scott's many accomplishments was influencing 1920s social life in New York. He wrote about these people like they were his own. Stories like The Great Gatsby and so many others were bred in these lavish parties. His books, like This Side of Paradise and The Beautiful and the Damned, not only echoed the tone of youth and rebellion in New York, but screamed it from the mountaintops. The Fitzgeralds were important New Yorkers because they showed partying with the Fitzgeralds was an important part of New York social life in the 20s. So yes, I do believe that I would be friends with Scott and Zelda. Scott was always bathed in champagne, gin, or whatever fountain he and Zelda could find, fully clothed and at any point in the day. Pearls and hooch clouded their vision of the world outside of themselves. Even having a daughter wasn't enough to ground Scott. Scott died in 1944, only 14 years after the 20s had ended. His wife collapsed into madness, while he collapsed into alcoholism. After the 20s were over, so were Scott and Zelda. Their worlds came crashing down around them. Despite their tragic lives, Scott wrote hundreds of books and stories published in magazines and newspapers, all the way to hard copies. The Fitzgeralds were the 1920s, and the 1920s were the Fitzgeralds.